Hey. 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Echo Chamber Studio, where music is brought to life. This is my first video. I thank everyone who is joining me live. No, a few persons probably will be seeing this after the fact, but send out the thanks same way, for joining on to the program. Tonight, wanted to start off my first video by just sharing a little bit about my journey in music. And no, guys, I am not some big, crazy, famous musician out there, but I am one that is on a journey, and that journey has brought me from somewhere, to where I currently am, and from where I am now, I hope to grow bigger, better, and hopefully being able to do, my own stuff, mixing my own songs, mastering my own songs, all the works. I'm, I'm dedicated to trying to get that dream out there. So, without further ado, without further ado, I want to start off by, first acknowledging the fact that my musical journey started in church. Yes. And I know a lot of the musicians out there, if you ask them where you start play, how you get into this, a lot of them will tell you, church me I play, man, learning the ropes in the church as you should, learning, among different persons in that environment. And I can remember that I was playing the drum before I could play the drum, guys. So that's the first thing. Most men start with the drum. I started on it too. So, winding back the curtains, back in the days when I was just starting the drums, before I could even kick the pedal and touch any other thing, what my father used to do, and I have to big up Bro G every time for that, always let me sit on his lap and me just get the stick, me I beat everything else. But he's, doing the bass drum and the hi-hat and that starter stuff. But I'm with the sticks and doing my little thing, and for the first part of my musical journey, because it started in church, and you can't come to church, come mash up the people in service. So, a lot of the times they didn't want me up there, you know, because I used to run away from my mom to go sit next to my dad to learn to play the drums and, just to be around the music. And I remember some persons didn't like to see me going up there next to him. And my father, he made sure that, I was there next to him to learn and to be able to do, what I am doing now. And so big up for that, Brother Gary. Strong man, That started it with the drums, in my little element learning the drums until I slowly, was in the swing of things, could play decent now, And I remember when I used to, and anybody will play drum or play music, Uncle Church, the Rasta thing set up. You go, and one man I play, as a youngster, you sit down, to touch up nothing, because them not call you before you touch up nothing, you wait for your chance. So that was me sitting down, looking around, looking at everything. I have a bigger man that is playing the drum. At the time, somebody else came up in the church playing the drum, and I was there watching them. And I was just waiting for them to say, see a player, man. Waiting for my opportunity to, So at the start of service, they'll probably have a consecration on him. Might say, all right, well, I'll have a play right here. But as soon as it's done, take back his stick, him run off service, play the entire service up until the end of service, where sometimes they have that ending hymn song or something like that going on. And you say, all right, well, back a play, So those were the highlights of my, music drumming days until, I was the one playing there more commonly. I was the one that was the main drummer at the time. And so at the time, there was a keyboard player there, and his family, was migrating. And I remember this was right about the time that I was still going to high school years. And I remember, he left us high and dry because there was nobody else in the church to play the keyboard. And my dad, being the man that he was, he said, I don't want to learn this, man. And bought a keyboard, those old time Yamaha PSR E233, I think it was one of those old ones, man, or banging thing, They have some nice keyboards to bang, shuffle and that kind of stuff, but you wouldn't just grab it up if you're thinking of playing worship and that sort of stuff. I see a lot of the African guys use these type of keyboards though, I said, boy, kudos to them. But that was where we started with the keyboard. And I remember when the keyboard used to come home, my favorite sounds are explosion and applause and them thing up on the board, So yes, my thing I'm more did for the effects, them and effects and all them stuff there. Until I took it a little, I started to learn a little bit, and trust me, anybody who is young listening now, you have a youngster growing, or somebody that is looking on what you're doing, yeah, man, don't run them, make them go and stay in at the space and learn, because, my first learning experience at the keyboard wasn't somebody training me anything, going to any classes, but watching my father plays is one little note or two little notes. Sometimes I just that banging, in my do on the keyboard, but me I catch on the notes. I remember, one day I finally come where, I kind of get learn up the cards C, F, and G, and probably minors in between. And I heard him playing a song one day, and he was struggling to find the key. I remember I just stand up over him and I watch, because a big man are playing, touch up your thing, but he might take a while to play, if you start find the key. I said, boy, the people, they must start, look now, but the key someone comes, so, and I realized when I touch the notes, I found the key that he was actually in. And I said, that sound like a hit, So I hold on it, and I'm hold the key and start just play with one and I wait for him take over, And then I just hear a church sister in the church say, make it like a boy play keyboard. From that day, my dad, he rarely touches the keyboard in our church, because I think, the youngster coming in now was a huge hype thing now, because nobody had heard me play keyboard before. I never take up keyboard, so I play no in a church, but that in that moment is like I knew the key that the song was playing in, and I knew how to play it, the rhythm and stuff like that. So I took it up from then on. I've been mostly self-taught. I remember when my dad realized that I was taking to the keyboard now, he opted to send me to a person to teach me. But after the 5th lesson, the man said, you don't need nothing more. At that point, I think we need the world of information for learning, But the man said, you don't need to come back on more class. After that, the man ditched me of a sort. And so from that moment, I remember learning on my own. But something key about that, those 5 classes, they opened up my mind to more possibilities. And so music, you'll often find that sometimes it takes the simplest things to just blow your mind, open up your mind to a new idea, to a new way of doing things, and just hearing one thing just change your entire catalog. Is like you hear one note or one phrase, and it's like, I said, boy, this can go this, or that can be there, so this. So it like exposure is something that was big, and I wasn't getting a lot of that when I was younger playing, and I came up. I remember playing and going into parish events. And guys, for those who don't know, I attend the Church of God of Prophecy, one of the branches. And so, there are areas where there were a lot of musicians, and there were other areas where there weren't a lot of musicians in the area. And so I was blessed to be in an area that had where the parish musicians kind of resided. That's where most of them lived, in the general vicinity. So whenever parish events were happening and I would be looking at what was going on, learning what they were doing. I remember hearing one player doing something on the keyboard, and it changed my whole idea of what was possible to play. And I jumped on it, and I learned so much. I'd say the most pivotal points in learning the keyboard for me was when the first or the second class that I went with the guy, because he taught me as the dare in a more complex way than what I would usually play. And he taught me this old time song. him sowing in the morning, sowing seeds of kindness. So before, this was me. And sometimes I would play inversions, but that's where I lived, in the regular triad, you know, your 1 4 5 as a keyboard or a music or a rhythm player, your 1 4 5 and your 6 maybe and your 2, and 3 little, them little stuff there, And so I remember going to the class and he taught me As the Deer, but this was how he taught me. As the deer panted for the water, so my soul longed after thee. Yeah, man. And the one little thing, and him not play it complex, Man play it normal, but me don't know something about that just changed the way I thought about music and about how I thought about approaching it. And so from that day, I remember going into my bag and learning a lot of things. So now when I play that song, it sounds a little bit different, similar, but a little bit different because of how I play it now and stuff like that. So if I were to play it now, probably I'd play it still simply because it's not a song where you want to put a whole heap of things in about. Well, yeah, just like that. And so that opened up my mind so much. And I remember another thing. These two moments, I remember them vividly because I don't know what it was about these two moments that really shifted how I thought about how I could play and approach certain things. So, but I remember listening to one player at a parish event, and he did something simple, I tell you guys, something simple. So, like, he would have usually depend the 6, like in a way, but what he did, he played the 5 over the 6. And I don't know, that just, I can play different cards over each other, and so that opened up a whole new mind, a whole new approach to music. And so I found from those days that I really grew into who I am now playing. And I remember along the way, I picked up FL Studio somewhere in high school. Some guys were talking about it and how they were able to build rhythms and stuff like that. But I didn't take it all too serious at the time until further along. And I was realizing the power that this software had to do so much, mixing, mastering, learning all of these things. And I took it up a little bit more serious to learn it and to understand it. And today that software has been one of my saving graces, as it relates to learning how to do mixing, mastering, production, recording, all of that sort of stuff. So that earlier stage of the journey really set a good foundation, I'd say, for now that I am at this level. I'm still a local player, but I do play on a parish level within my local church as well. So moving from just the local, watching over what was happening, and now playing on a more, a little higher level in the parish scene, which has been good and has allowed me to have good exposure. Going to conventions, hearing different musicians, hearing their takes has really helped me, guys. Really helped me. And along the way, there were a few challenges, a few obstacles. I can tell you there have been countless times that I was at the keyboard trying to learn a song and I was literally stuck. My brain, it was like, no, we're not doing this today, and so it's not without its challenges. And I remember when I was learning even some of the other instruments like the keyboard, a lot of persons when I after I passed that initial, I'd say, honeymoon phase of them being about a young person starting to play the keyboard in church, there were some persons who they expected more from me to be growing and stuff like that, but without the exposure and the resources, I wasn't able to. And so I think in a way, in some ways, I was judged a little bit more, a little bit harsher, considering what I had at my fingertips at the time. But even though I do think that I think those moments of criticism, where persons would question my, my skill and ability to play certain stuff, and it really motivated me to want to learn more. So somebody might be out there learning, probably maybe just learning, maybe just starting out, or you might be foreign. But you face a lot of, I'd say, criticism and obstacle in that sense where persons, you know, you're learning your thing, you're there at a level now, but the more you're there, the perfect level. But everything takes time, everything takes its own seasons, of learning, falling down, getting back up. So that was a struggle that at the initial stage of the keyboard, I was nervous about whether or not I would have grown in the way that I think persons wanted me to grow. And so part of my journey was taking, persons' expectations and putting them to the side and trying to live based on where I am today and where I want to be tomorrow. So it has been a steady incremental growth, not an extremely fast growth, but I do see growth in different areas. So don't be discouraged, even if you're not where you want to be right now. Trust me, in a few years you might just look back on those days where you were building in the trenches, man. And I said, "Why? Look at me now." And so looking back, it has been one of those moments for me, looking back where I'm coming from and how I really grew in the music, uh, and where my skill level now and what I really am pursuing now as somebody who wants to do production, mixing, mastering, all of that work as it relates to music. And that was a huge struggle for me. And I remember another struggle, and a lot of church musicians may or may not have this struggle, probably not, maybe it was just a me thing, but I realized that where I felt the most comfortable, especially earlier on in my musical journey, was never in my local church. And let me tell you why. And scripture even tells you that a man is without honor, a prophet is without honor in his own country. And it's that persons don't appreciate you where you are, But the thing about scarcity and demand, where you go somewhere else and you're playing, and there was a scarcity there, you feel more welcome because persons are so appreciative because it's something that they're not used to. But over the time, if you're playing at one place, oftentimes because you've gotten into the groove of things, you get in, you get used to people, and nothing's wrong with getting used to persons, building that relationship. But when you step out and then you come back in, you realize that there's a difference in the feeling. So where in your church you feel almost like you can't make a mistake, when you go outside and you play somewhere else and you make that same mistake, you don't feel like, so you make like it's that big of a deal. Not that it isn't, but because there wasn't that place there already, you feel more encouraged to try things and make the mistakes because there isn't a huge expectation on you, especially if you were going places that the level of music wasn't as high at the time, which was happening to me a lot. So the level of music wasn't at the highest level. They were very decent musicians, and I think at the time, because of their scarcity, the church wasn't in a position to be hearing music all the while. So when they heard it, again, it kind of build them up. So you see them, the excitement and their happiness. You're there, and so that really built my confidence. So a lot of my confidence, it wasn't built in my local church per se, but really a lot of it was built, going places that probably were not that musically advanced in a sense, and then coming back to my local church with that newfound, confidence. I tried a lot of the other things and they worked, and then going into environments where they sing different songs, so you're tested in different areas, different genres. Wait, there are some dogs barking away in my background right now. I don't know where they came up from, but yeah, I hope it doesn't bother this too much. But yeah, that was something that I struggled with in the earlier parts, and comparing myself to other musicians, where they were much better, and I'm in this era where I'm seeing persons like Chris, I'm seeing persons, like Joel, like LJ. Uh, I'm seeing a lot of different big names, in music, doing a lot of different things. I hope I didn't get any one of those names wrong though. But yeah, a lot of these persons doing so many big things, in this space. And there are many more that I could mention, but those were just the first ones that came to mind because those are a couple of the musicians that I really look up to musically and really try to emulate in the way that I play. And anytime when I go to an event and they're there, man, I always enjoy listening to them, crazy stuff. But yeah, really enjoy going out. But a part of my development needed exposure, and I got that exposure going to different places. And for musicians upcoming, whether church or otherwise, I encourage you try to get that exposure because it will surely be in your best interest going out hearing different music. And don't make nobody tell you say it's only one type of music you can listen to. At the end of the day, it is discernment and knowing, especially if you're a Christian, knowing what it is that is more suitable for you to listen to, that is not derailing you away from God. Yeah, of course, if you're not in the Christian space and you're not a Christian, I can't speak to you, although it is still necessary to have a level of discernment, because not because something outlandish means, or means that or is something though full of bad word and full of expletives and all this kind of stuff mean that it's still good. Can still be portraying a message that you don't want to put in. And I'm sure there are other music in that very same genre that you can pull on to learn. So I'd say a big part of my musical journey included me listening to a lot of different songs. So persons looking to get into the space, listen as much as you can. Listen as much as you can. Try to get into that jazz pocket, try to get into that, classical, try to get into a bit of dancehall, reggae. There are dancehall songs out there that aren't, dancehall. I guess they put everything under the same category, but you have some songs that we Jamaicans we lump we we lump everything in the dancehall category. But some of those songs, I consider them otherwise other genres. But there are some good musicality in some of those other songs that you can really pull from as well, especially if you're going to the production and mastering and mixing, just hearing different sounds. And if you're not really if you don't into the lyrics of the songs, for especially for persons who are Christians and don't want to go in that dancehall area, what I'd recommend and what I have done, I think in the past with I think probably two songs. The songs weren't really bad per se, but at the same time, they weren't songs that I really wanted to be listening to the words over and over. So what I did, I got the instrumentals and I just listened to the musicality, because there are some little things that you can probably pick out that really enhances the sound of those types of music. And I don't know if you're realizing, especially in Jamaica, we are heavily into the dancehall gospel and reggae gospel. That is a huge thing for us. And even Afrobeats gospel, I'm seeing more of that come up in these days. A lot of these types of music, different artists like John Mark Wigan, we'll see Prince Sarge, the one chosen that everybody had everyone outraged with that song. But DJ Nicholas, Prodigal Son, Papa San, all these guys are in that space, and they do a lot of songs that aren't regular contemporary gospel, but they are some songs that are really nice and have some very great musicality, especially as a musician to listen to and learn. So listen widely, listen vastly, and get your practice in. A part of my journey I didn't mention earlier, but I remember one stage of my journey, all I did was come home, sit around the keyboard, scales. Okay. Up and down. And then I come back down. Or I go up and down. And so part of it was just scales, and though just not just major, but minor. And different things like that. And you can practice different minor scales and all that kind of stuff. Trust me, learning your skills, coming home and doing all that stuff, it was a huge blessing for me coming home to do that. And I had a partner at the time. Yeah, man. Trust me, if you learn with somebody, the best thing. Can keep each other accountable. When you reach whenever you guys are together, who can run the scale fastest and properly. Who can, so that friendly competition helps, in a lot of areas, and growing with other musicians, whether drummers, bass guitarists, that you play together so you can flesh out ideas, did really help me. I'd say, yeah, really helped me. And today, where I'm at now, I currently play with, I think, three bands primarily. Two of them are really growing right now. One I recently got added to one. I think they're looking to do some recruitment for some other musicians, but I'm trying to get more into into the space where I can, market my skill and use it to glorify God, one, yes, and to also earn from it and to make it into something that is a business, that you can make money from, and it's something that is stable enough to be considered additional income. So that is where I'm at musically. And right now, I am learning mixing, mastering, and production. I think there is a link in the description for that video. Oh, well, for the course, I think it's a free course. You can check it out. And also, guys, don't afraid to fail. I failed many times in this journey, and you might fail. But yeah, one of my, I'd say, failings, don't beat me, but I used to use transpose a lot. Yeah, I know. But since I've learned to play in all my keys. Yes, thank you. But yeah, that was one obstacle that I also had to clear. But in in general, I'd say, guys, my musical journey might not be yours, but I hope that somewhere along the line, whether it's something I said or something that you have experienced, you can kind of see with what I've been saying as well and kind of grow. And it's each one teach one. So even as I grow, I'll be posting on this channel. You'll see more stuff. Uh, yeah, you'll be seeing more from me. I hope to post a video next week about my studio setup. Of course, it's not a grand studio setup. I'd say budget friendly, sort of, depending on the budget that you're going with. But you can determine when I post that video. Hopefully next week, Saturday, I can post that video about the same time. It won't be a live, it will be pre-recorded because I have to get the photographs of all these equipment. Not a lot, but enough to warrant some like I guess some like photograph gymnastics. Yeah, but I'll show you how my studio setup is and what I use to do my recording, and I might just let you into something that I've recorded in the past when I was learning, you know, the software FL Studio and Ableton because I use both of them from time to time. But guys, thanks for having joined. Thank you for listening to me babble, ramble on all this time about my journey and a few stuff that have come up along the way. And I hope that you will stay tuned for the next video that will be released. I promise you that I'll be releasing it, and I hope to stick to that promise by any means necessary, by the hook or by the crook. But yeah, thanks again for joining the Echo Chamber Studio, where music is brought to life. Blessings, and I hope to see you in the next installment.